All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, the Wolf of Crypto. You guessed it. We got ourselves another guest. I got Mr. Sani here. It's going to be joining us here today. We're going to be talking about a little bit of AI, a little bit of blockchain. Obviously, before we jump into discussion, of course, Sani, give us a little introduction about yourself. Tell us what you're all about, man.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting. Glad to be here. Introduction on me. I've been around the tech world for pretty much my entire career and entire adult life, 2 decades almost now. And I founded a company called VezTech about 17 years ago, which is a emerging tech company. Now you understand the definition of emerging tech changes quite frequently. It used to be few years in the past. Now the definition changes about every 14 to 16, 17 months. If you remember, just a year ago to year and a half ago, we were talking about blockchain. Then we started talking about AI. Now AI isn't the biggest news anymore. Now we're talking about other stuff. And so that constant change in the tech landscape is something that I've been dealing with for the last 2 decades, and that's really is the highlight of my work. Over the under the umbrella of VezTech, we launched well over 600 tech startups. Some of them our internal projects, many of them along our outside client partners. And these projects and the startups have been in various industries, from very promising startups to scale ups, existing companies that want to leverage tech, emerging tech to go big, go bigger. Our clients also include Fortune 500 companies, Warner Brothers, Toyota, DirecTV, uh, City National Bank, and many others, and then government organizations, Department of Homeland Security, TSA, those type of organizations. Lately, I've been quite interested in two sectors. One is the finance, fintech type sector, and the other one is energy. Because I have come to believe that energy is probably if not the biggest, one of the biggest problems that we need to solve for this planet, for the human race, because
Of
energy
course.
impacts everything. And when I say energy, I'm talking about petroleum, I'm talking about renewables, I'm talking about everything you need to run data centers, because the superpower of the future, of the present actually, is data. If AI is a something that countries and companies need to leverage to move forward, AI's lifeblood is data, and data's
Mhm.
lifeblood is power, electricity. So once I had that realization about 2 years ago, I kind of honed in on this energy problem and founded a company called Green Global Trading, which focuses on energy trade internationally.
Mm.
So that has
Okay.
been my newer project for the last 2 years, and we're doing a lot of work there. We can talk about it more if you like, but that's where I am.
All right, and I would say that was pretty well packaged there. It gave us a lot to decipher here. So people that are listening, I hope you guys are got your pen and pad out there taking some notes because this guy is obviously very involved into these different sectors. And again, you did a lot of different things, especially when it comes to the AI sector, the energy, and as far as your Vez Tech company. I wanted to learn a little bit more about what kind of makes you start that company. How did you get into the tech industry? Could you give us a little walk through memory lane?
Yeah. So story of origin is that um, I finished business school in 2003. And that was a time when America was still coming out of the dot com bubble and dealing with
Mhm.
the aftermath of that. Companies needed tech, but finances were tight. And so, what I was doing as one of my first corporate jobs, I would go into these big corporations and I would do something called corporate process optimization or business
Mhm.
process optimization, which is a fancier word for saying eliminating jobs. Once you
Okay.
streamline processes, you take out people, right? Cut expenses.
Right.
That's the goal. So that's what I was doing. I was high flying, single guy, good money, and life was good. In the middle of all that, I visited my grandmother, and grandma, like every other grandma, wanted to know what I do for work. I tried to explain to her in my she spoke Punjabi language, so in that language, and I tried to simplify what I do for the corporations. So I'm like, I think what I tried to tell her was that when I'm done doing my thing with the companies, each of their employee can do the job of three people. And grandma goes, so if one employee can do the job of three people, then what happens to the other two people? They're left. And this
Yeah.
lady, her response was, "Oh, so your job is to take away people's bread and butter." That was a gut punch. So I said, "Thank you, Grandma. Love you too." Came back from the holidays, and but that statement stayed with me. Now, in the corporate world, my the work that I did through corporate process optimization, I was doing a lot of automation for different companies, including
Mhm.
Toyota, Canon, and other companies like that. So I had interest in tech. I had connections in South Asia. In outsourcing out of India and Pakistan was big at that time. So I had those connections because of my background, and I was
Mhm.
looking for something that would make grandma happy because we don't want to take away people's bread and butter anymore. So that's where the idea of VezTech come from. So we're gonna start a company that's gonna be an emerging tech company. It's gonna provide the most cutting edge technology at reasonable prices because we could outsource at that point to India, Pakistan, other places like that. Currently, we are in a reverse outsource trend where American employees are being hired by foreign companies. So now America
Mhm.
is being outsourced instead of America outsourcing. So reverse outsourcing is going on. But at that time, outsourcing, the idea was new. Everybody thought it was a magic bullet. So that was the base of our business model. Initially, like any other tech company, we did whatever project we could get in the tech space. But then over time, we developed our key competency areas and we focused on those over the years.
Awesome. 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 Now, staying into this whole industry of AI, because I know a lot of people that are out there feel like some are a little intimidated by artificial intelligence. A lot of people feel like it could replace jobs. It's already getting implemented into some corporations. You're seeing big time companies implement
Yeah,
AI into their everyday
everything.
sources as far as what they're implementing for their companies. Do you see AI potentially replacing us? Because I feel like I've had some other conversations, excuse me, with people that are in the background of artificial intelligence, blockchain, and it's always interesting to hear what they think on that particular topic because I think that's something that, like I said, again, a lot of people are trying to wrap their minds around that because if that does happen, a lot of people are like looking at themselves like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Okay. So the short answer to your question is that AI, machine learning, and technologies like that, they will impact every industry. Doesn't matter if you're a plumber or a astronaut or anything in between. It's either impacting or will impact. A few years ago, when in conversations like these, I would say that AI is not going to touch the creative endeavors, creative skills, the artists and the musicians. What now, creatives and musicians and the writers are the ones who are getting replaced before anybody else. Why?
Right.
AI is, as I mentioned earlier, AI's lifeblood is data. Wherever you have large amounts of data, those jobs are going to get either replaced or significantly impacted. IMF issued a report, I think it was in March this year, and they said all the jobs that currently exist by the end of this decade, so what, 6 years, less than 6 years
Mhm.
remaining, 40% of those jobs will not exist anymore. Then they said over 80% of the jobs will get significantly impacted. And then they said 100% of the industries will be impacted to a degree where if they ignore AI, it will be a strategic threat to their existence.
Ooh,
So
that's
basically,
interesting.
in short, we are saying anyone and everyone, right?
Right.
I mentioned earlier, VezTech is an emerging tech company. Emerging tech changes all the time, so we
Right.
have to keep an eye on the changing and shifting tech landscape, so that we can prepare our people, our technology, our infrastructure, be ready for the demand that's coming down the pike. So we invest quite a bit every year in getting surveys done and market research done. This
Mhm.
year, late last year, the report that we received from our research company, they said that, and this is another interesting data point, which I can't not mention it. 78%, close to 80% of the survey respondents who are business leaders, all of them, mid-size
Mhm.
and up companies, All of them, they said that they understand that their companies, if they don't adopt emerging technologies, they will be significantly impacted and they will get left behind. And in 10 years, in 1 decade, if they don't adopt these technologies, they will not survive. Forget about thriving, or they will not exist. Okay, so you understand that there's a challenge. Then we asked, are you investing in these technologies? Are you adopting? Are you bringing those technologies in your existing business functions? Less than 3% of them said yes. So less than
Mm.
3%, 80% understand there's a need, less than 3%. Now, this was last year. Things have changed between last year and this year. Until last year, that was AI honeymoon time. We all were trying to get a feel of it, see what it does, what it can do. There was a lot of dreaming, hallucination
Mhm.
going on. So, because of hallucination, we can't trust the data. So, it was more of a new fancy toy. But now we are at a point where we are telling corporate boards that you need to have actually dedicated time on your board meetings to discuss AI and how it
Mm.
needs to be integrated in your business functions. We are telling corporations that you need to think of AI as not as a fancy toy. When you start a business, if you take on an AI project, don't think of it as a tech project. Think of it as a business initiative. Are you solving a business problem? Is there a compelling enough business case to invest in that project? Because now we're talking about real deal. It's not toy anymore. It's not new novelty item.
Right.
So don't invest just because everybody else is doing. Don't invest in AI just because your investors are saying or stakeholders are saying that you need to invest. If first think of the business case, your business case has to be strong enough. It's very easy to say, and many companies did that, by the way. Very easy to say, oh, we have a new AI project and we're going to invest this much money into it. We are very forward-thinking company. But if you're not thinking in the context of business case, why you are investing in that technology, then it's not going to work. So what was happening last year? I had a meeting with a large consulting firm early 2023. So in that meeting, I said, so are you guys, what you doing around AI? Oh, we're doing a lot of work. We have a lot of projects going on. I said, what can you share some of those projects? We are studying how to use AI in insurance. We are studying how to use AI in what industry X, whatever. So there was
Right.
a lot of study. There was a lot of trying to understand what to do. So we had a solution, but we were looking for problems. But now we are past that stage now. So what I say now is that one, you have, like I said, 80% of the survey respondents, they said it's a matter of strategic competitive magnitude. You cannot ignore it. But then you have to think. So when we saw that less than 3% people are actually significantly taking steps to do something about it, the natural follow up question, why? And the answer that we found was fear. I've been running my business this way for the last, I know how my business works. I have processes in place. If I bring in AI, it's going to disrupt my existing processes. I don't understand where to start. I don't know what AI does. Oh, we're just going to watch, wait and see what happens, how the technology evolves. We are having difficult time keeping up with the new tools that are coming out in the market. So we don't know which one to use. So essentially, all of these excuses, they all boil down to fear of the new, fear of the unknown, fear of change. So to that, we've been advising that first of all, AI by itself does not give you competitive advantage. You and I both have access to pick a tool, ChatGPT,
Yep.
$20. There's a free version too, right? If you and I
Right.
have access to the same thing, it's not a competitive advantage, neither for you nor for me. It becomes a competitive advantage when you pick your own, say, you have done X number of episodes of this podcast. You pick, I'm using an example, right? You take all those
Right.
episodes, you load them into an LLM such as ChatGPT, you create a custom GPT. Now you have a tool that's based on your data that I don't have access to. Now you can say,
Right.
based on this data, do X for me. Now it's a competitive advantage. So we've been telling companies that you need to think where the data is in your in your organization. Where's the data? If you think of any organization, the cleanest, the most reliable data is where? In the finance function. No
Hmm.
matter what business you are in, you never lose track of your money. That's where you're going to watch most closely and you're going to have the cleanest data. Like we have in any decent sized organization, we have a proper end of month process where we make sure that all our data, financial data, is clean by the end of the month. So that's where you have the most, you have the cleanest data. Then you have other departments where you can find more data. And as you go down the chain through the different business functions, some functions have more clean data, others have less clean data. Wherever you have more data and clean data, that's your candidate for AI. So don't wake up one morning and say, we're going to replace all existing processes and we're going to throw in AI and it's going to solve all our problems. No, that's not going to happen, right?
Right.
Find out where. Even company like Amazon that has infinite resources, apparently, even they are using AI in their finance function the most. That's where they and specifically to process their invoices, vendor invoices around taxation and stuff.
Mhm.
News just came out yesterday in Wall Street Journal. So that's they're using LLM. So that's, I believe that's the right way of thinking. Where in my organization I have the most amount and the cleanest data available, and then how I can make that function more efficient by using these new tools. There
Okay.
are people out there who specialize in this stuff. So the fear that I don't know where to start, in my organization, there are people who live and breathe AI and machine learning and emerging tech, talking to those kind of people and figuring out where you can leverage these tools. That's what we advise. Stagnation is not the answer. Not doing anything is not the answer. You're either going up or down. There's no like smooth sailing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. Yeah. I,
And
I don't know what you asked and where I ended, but somehow.
no, you're good. You're good. You were pretty much going in right there. And again, you had mentioned. I think that's something that people got to keep in mind too. Is the first key point is data, right? Data is pretty much rules, right?
Yeah.
And I actually had a guest I brought on my show not too long ago who's actually building a AI model to just simply just function where he's just going to read all this data. And
Mhm.
let's say you want to predict something in the future, like for 2040, all that AI is going to do is guess what? It's just going to read data. It's going to read
Mhm.
data. And I think people that are the whole fear, not really knowing where to start. If people are listening, those numbers that you had described earlier, those are scary.
Yeah.
80% and only 3% of people are actually willing to maybe get on board and listen or have that type of conversation.
Yeah.
And you just said in less than 10 years, 10 years can come by like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So I think, again, people really need to do their homework, do their due diligence,
Mhm.
get involved. Because, like you said, ChatGPT is a great example. I'm starting to use ChatGPT a little bit more because, again, you gotta learn how to have it dedicated towards whatever you're trying to get it done.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, it's not a competitive advantage if we both have it, and it's not really taking me from this level and putting me at this level. If it's keeping me right here, you guys shouldn't be worried about, oh man, they got access to it. Guess what? Everything's competition, but it's all about who's the one that can basically finesse it in their way where they can take advantage of it and actually see some type of return from using the technology. Because I feel like AI is it's scary because I feel like as it gets to some of these next levels, because like you were touching on a little bit earlier with the whole machine learning, and I'm not too familiar in that particular space, and you probably can talk on this a little bit more. Is there going to be a point where people are like, okay, I think AI might be doing a little too much? Because we've seen right now, I'll give some examples where you could pretty much take a video and it could look like that exact person, and you can
Deepfakes
basically
is a
change
big
it.
Deepfakes is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like when you see stuff like that,
Mhm.
and this is another thing I actually wanted to dive into that you had brought up earlier with the whole like AI, crypto, like scams and stuff that's been going on in the space.
Yeah.
Can you just touch on what you think could happen, or actually reframe that question? What can you tell people that are a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit scared of this emerging technology? Because, like you said earlier, it's constantly innovating, and not everybody has the time to
Yeah.
really just follow it.
Yeah. You asked me like five things in
I
one.
know that's your cool
I'm
question.
taking notes so I don't forget anything. Okay. The question you asked me earlier, that was about jobs, and I totally went in a different direction. I do want to comment on that first, and then we'll come back to this deepfake and crimes and all that. Everyone tries to forecast the future because if you know what's going to happen tomorrow, which crypto to buy, for example, right? So it's all guess. And a lot of people, they position themselves as futurists, which is one way to look at it. My approach is that look at the next thing, not the future as in far future, like what's going to happen 50 years from today. I'm going to be dead by now, so I can make any claim I want. You can't come get
Right.
me. But I'm more interested in what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so that me and you and your audience, they can plan for those next decade or 2 decades, whether it's jobs or investments or acquiring new skills or education or whatever that might be. One way
Right.
to look at that, which I have found useful, is not looking what's going to happen next year. Look at 10 years ahead. How do you envision the world in 10 years? And then working backwards.
Hmm.
A lot of industry leaders, they agree that about 10 years from today, roughly, the world is going to be more and more virtual. We saw a glimpse of that in the metaverse craze, which was turned out to be more of a
Hmm.
marketing ploy than anything else. But
Yeah.
there's the technology itself is amazing. There's a lot of promise in it. And I think it's a good thing that we saw a little version of metaverse, but there are lots of supporting technologies that we need. So metaverse, as I envision 10 years from today, we'll be living in a metaverse. We'll be working, we'll be studying, we'll be interacting, entertainment, everything will be, or majority of that will be in metaverse. In order to do that,
Hmm.
you need bunch of supporting technologies. We talked about data earlier. Data is lifeblood, right? Everything starts with data. In order to make data happen, you need data centers. Right now, there's a data center gold rush going on in the world. If you're looking to invest anywhere, data centers is one of those things. Then,
Oh.
in order to run those data centers, you need electricity. I talked about the energy question earlier. I was in a meeting at Microsoft about 6 months ago now, towards the end of the last year. And someone made a statement, one of their presenters. They said that in 2023, about 4% of the world electricity, all electricity that gets produced, 4% of that was being used for emerging tech to support AI, blockchain, those kind of things, data centers. And by the end of 2024, it's going to be about 8%. So it's not a straight curve, it's an exponential curve, which is not sustainable. So you need cheaper sources to produce energy, cheaper ways to, you need cheap energy, you need cheap data storage, you need cheap processing power. So those are supporting technologies. Then you need communication. We are at 5G networks right now. We need to go beyond that. We
Hmm.
need to invest quite a bit in IoT devices. We need to invest quite a bit in cybersecurity. We'll talk about deepfakes and crimes in a little bit. And there are a bunch of other technologies. All of these technologies need to evolve to a certain level where they can support that future that we need 10 years from today. And there is a forecast from Deloitte, I think, or McKinsey, one of those big firms. They created a timeline. How many years will it take for each of these technologies to evolve? Earlier, when you
Right.
asked me a question about jobs, I said, what's the age range of your audience? And the reason why I asked that, if I'm a 50 years old man, I'm going to be working, say, another 10 or 20 years. I have to look at the timeline of the evolution of those technologies and then adapt or acquire skills to remain relevant on that time scale. If
Hmm.
my work life is another 10 to 15 years, I can't be preparing for 30 years in the future. I only have to prepare for that 15 years. But if you're a young man coming out of college today, you have to prepare for the next 30 years. So you have to look at that timeline when the technologies are evolving. The question is not whether AI is going to take your job or not. AI will replace many jobs, AI will eliminate many jobs. That's a fact. But we can't just sit here and say, oh my God, AI is going to take over the world. Yeah, it is going to take over the world. Big deal. What you can do about it? That's the question. The question is, what are we
Right.
going to do about it? And the answer to that is depending on your timeline, your horizon. How many years are you going to be working? How many years you're going to be in the workforce? Then you develop skills in those technologies. Hopefully you have access to education and training, which at least in the U.S. we do. Lots of courses are available
Mhm.
online. Lots of training is available either in some cases free, in other cases quite inexpensive. You don't have to have master degrees, and not everyone is going to become a PhD data scientist. Some people will. Because and the reason why I made this statement, I have heard an argument that, yeah, you're talking about retooling people, but that's only for the smartest people of the society. I'm like, no, that's not true. For
Mhm.
example, if we need cheaper data centers, we need technicians to build those data centers. We need miners to mine certain materials that we need in the data centers. Is saying that only the smartest, the PhD brains are the ones who are going to be able to thrive in this new world. I don't necessarily agree with that. So it's the nature of jobs that's changing. Even IMF's report that I mentioned earlier, in which they said that 80% of the jobs will get impacted and 40% will disappear. They also said that many new job categories are being created, which will offset, if not all, majority of the jobs that we are losing.
Okay. Yeah.
You can push back and you can say this is all forecast. It's someone's guess. This is a guess from very smart people who can do this all
Yeah.
day long. So I
Right.
can trust that guess. So fear is not the right response. Planning is certainly needed. And one way to plan is what I described, looking at that timeline, what's needed, what technologies are going to evolve at what pace and where. So that kind of is the answer to the jobs question. Now, one of the technologies, very fundamental technology that is needed to live in that futuristic virtual world, is the cybersecurity aspect, because deepfakes have already become a huge issue. I speak on different forums multiple times a week, and we get thousands of views, usually on different social media platforms. In February, I was interviewed, and I told the story of a cyber crime that took place in Asia, in which a corporate company employee was duped through deepfakes, in which deepfake CEO of the company on a Zoom call told this guy to move X millions of dollars, I think 4 million or something US dollars, to an external account because supposedly the CEO is in London making a deal and he needs that money to complete the deal, otherwise he'll lose the deal. And it was a Zoom call. So a CEO is on that call, and then they have a bunch of other employees on the call. And then there's this one guy, the guy who got duped, he's on the call. So he moves the money, and then they found out that only one person, the guy who got duped, he was the one who was real. Everybody else was a deep fake. And they had a conversation, told him, authorized the money, and the money is gone. In the US, now states have started making laws. I'm forgetting the name of the state, one of the US states that was the first to make laws where they said that using deepfakes to imitate or to show that a politician is making some statements, whatever, which is fake, within X number of days from an election, that's a crime. States are making laws where using deepfakes to create someone's inappropriate videos, that's a crime. So now we are in a place. So the way laws work, crime comes first and law follows that. Law tries to catch up with that. The
Right.
issue, what's causing a lot of fear and anxiety in the society with AI is that AI's scale and scope, it's so massive. The speed is so massive. What I said yesterday is may or may not be true today. What I'm talking to you today may or may not be true tomorrow. That's the scale and speed. Law, which is historically is slower to catch up, is having difficulty. So regulators, they are like struggling. You don't expect your senators and your presidential candidates to know a lot of these emerging tech. We are having difficult time keeping up, people who are in the industry. So fully relying on regulation and law is not going to be the answer. I think answer is going to be somewhere between some regulation, some law, some education, some technology. That's the answer to cybersecurity. Now, the technology is digital doubles. So I can create your digital double. Now it becomes deepfake based on this is my definition, right? So you can call it wrong. Based on how I'm using that video, that makes it either digital double or deepfake. My definition is that if I make a video of you and use it for nefarious purposes, then it's a deepfake, it's criminal, it's illegal. But if you make a video of you because you want to produce a bunch of content, you don't have time, right? There are a bunch of tools online.
Of course. Yep.
Is one of them. 11 Labs is another one where you can produce your own voice, but it's AI generated voice, but it's your voice based on your own voice model. We can create your video in which it's not you, but it's your digital double, and we can create all sort of content. It can be training content, can be anything, educational, anything, marketing content. Your intent is not bad. Your intent is right. It's just another way of presenting data. In that case, it's digital double. We use this technology, digital double technology, we used in the behavioral health space. There's a group of therapists, psychologists that we worked with.
Hmm.
Short story. They so what we did, the challenge was that these therapists they meet with their clients slash patients once a week. But what happens during the week? There's no communication between the therapist and the patient, and some of those patients they need therapy more frequently. But especially the U.S. right now, there are therapists are in short they're in short supply.
Wow.
That's a challenge. What we did was said, what if we create, there's Bob, the human therapist, then we create Bob's digital double that is based on Bob's history, knowledge, education, his treatment methodologies that he uses, all of that. And then we said, okay, now Bob's patient is Peter. So Peter has a history of several years of working with Bob, the therapist. So we're going to take Peter's history and we're going to take Bob's whole behavioral health methodologies and we're going to upload that all into bob.ai, which is a digital double. And we're going to give that to Peter, the patient.
Okay.
So that was a test study. We had a small group, a decent sized group of patients. So we told them, look, everything that you say, it's going to get recorded because we need that data for training purposes and all that to train the AI. As I said
Right.
earlier, data is the lifeblood. So we would even pay to get that data.
Right.
By the way, when you get free tools from these companies like OpenAI or Tesla gives you, if you drive Tesla, Tesla sometimes give you their full auto drive for free. Other companies, you can lots of free use of different tools. That's not out of the goodness of their heart. They need data. So you're giving them.
Keep that in mind, folks. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. So we did that. We told these test patients that you will use Bob.ai, the therapist, and everything you say and do will be recorded. Use it. Now, you would think, now, by the way, when you go to a human therapist, will tell you doctor patient confidentiality, nothing is get recorded. We're not going to disclose anything unless there is like criminal activity or something that by law is required to be reported, child abuse type stuff. So you would think that in this case, we have told the patients don't disclose what you don't want to disclose because everything is being recorded. We found out,
Hmm.
I was surprised when I realized this. People were more open to Bob.ai than they were to Bob, the therapist.
Wow.
In two cases, they actually mentioned things that had to be reported. But we are not the doctors, right? So
Yeah.
different relationship. There's no doctor-patient confidentiality here. That was something we had to deal with. In this case, digital double technology was used for a good purpose. Patients were way more open with the digital double than with the actual human therapist. It's the same technology, but depending on how you use it, it becomes deepfake or digital double,
Okay.
right?
That's a good
That's
definition.
yeah. So cyber crimes that have been around always, now it's on the rise, and many companies. If you can find solution to AI powered cyber crimes, you will be the next richest person on the planet. I can tell you that. There's so much money flowing into it, so much investment money, and people are trying to find solutions. But the challenge is that AI and AI powered tools are evolving at such a speed that keeping up, like you can create the best tool today, but tomorrow it's going to be obsolete. That's the challenge. So, what we are advising for the time being, beyond, and there are excellent tools available out there, we use many of them. Beyond that, there's still common sense and there's a lot of social engineering going on. I'll give you one quick story. So I sign up with these travel groups on Facebook because I like to travel. Facebook, travel groups. And someone said, "Oh, I'm traveling to country so and so. Anyone has been there? Please give me some ideas." So, okay, here's some ideas. Then this person sends me a Facebook chat invite. I have a few questions. Would you mind answering the questions? I don't want to ask in public. I was like, okay, sure. So now I'm chatting and I'm thinking this man is traveling with his family. Turkey, by the way, go
Hmm.
to Turkey. I went to Turkey 2 years ago. I have a lot of information. I don't mind sharing. I love turkey. So this person, no, woman, a woman. So I'm traveling with my family and all that. I'm like, okay, so feel free to ask whatever you need to ask. So first few questions: which cities you visited, where did you go, what was your most favorite things? Next question: what's your favorite hobby? What's your best favorite hobby?
Hmm.
Okay, that's I didn't expect. Sure. Next question: did you rent a car over there? I'm like, no, we didn't rent a car. What kind of car did you drive? I'm like, we had tour guide. They brought the car, whatever. What's your favorite car? What was your first car? And at that point, I realized what was happening there. So this is AI powered social engineering. There is no person on the other side. It's a chat bot that's AI powered,
Oh,
right? And it is designed to collect information that can be used for cyber crimes. When you set up a bank account, for example, security questions.
yeah,
What was your first car? The
yeah.
street where you grew up? Your mother's maiden name?
Oh, oh. Okay, it just clicked. Wow, that's wild.
Right?
Oh my
So
goodness.
when this entity started asking me questions, but look, and the flow of the conversation was so natural. It wasn't like out of the blue. What was your first car? There was whole like leading up to that. Which vehicle did you rent? How did you rent? Did you like the vehicle? By the way, what's your favorite vehicle? By the way, what was your first vehicle? There is a whole story behind that,
Yeah.
right? And it is so natural that for an average person, it is hard to catch that. For me, it took few minutes and several questions to realize what was going on.
Hmm.
So the reason of sharing this story is that the answer to cyber crimes or AI powered crimes is not all in the tech. It's not all in the law and regulation. A lot of that is also in knowledge and learning and education, realizing how learning how these things work, right? And being
Hmm.
and then in the corporate setup, having processes, having internal processes, best practices to protect your organization from these sort of situations. So I mentioned energy markets and energy deals. They tend to be very large money deals in the energy sector. So now, when we need to move money, what we do is we bring our partners, the decision makers, on a live call. The call is fully encrypted. Even after that, fully descripted, it's video. These are the people that I've known for decades, the decision makers. So
Hmm.
even then, we ask each other questions that only we would know. A question can be, when was the last time you and I had meal together, and what was it? Something that only you would know.
Okay, I got you.
And this is when we're talking about money movement in the tunes of hundreds of millions at a time. So having those sorts of practices in place, having those best practices to counter these sort of social engineering type cyber attacks or AI powered cyber attacks, that's a very important component that needs to be a very important part of your arsenal. We can't just rely
Mhm.
on tech. We can't just rely on law. So I'll stop at that. But this, you can have a whole episode on just this one topic.
This is powerful stuff here, and that story, and I'm glad you actually shared that story because that could happen to like just the average normal person, and if they're not experienced, they can get taken advantage of, like how we just see normal scams here today. So the fact that cybersecurity, this is something that obviously needs to happen, regulation needs to happen, but like you said, how is it going to happen? Because if the technology is emerging so quickly,
Yeah,
it's like, all right, we got a framework that works well now.
yeah.
You turn around, and now we got to create a new framework. And I wanted to, since you guys are involved watching these trends, how do you guys keep up with this? Because I feel like next week we could have some big news that AI company or AI can now do this, and it's oh okay, so
Right.
we have a new AI project that just been released. So it's like when that happens, do you guys just automatically start doing like some research and like
Mhm.
some digging to figure out what can we do to not maybe have this AI feature, whatever it might be, get exploited too badly? Because I'm pretty sure if you've been in the crypto space, you've seen some crazy exploitations when it comes to scams.
Yeah. In one regard, this current situation is not new, and that is tech landscape is shifting. It's changing constantly. I mentioned earlier, it went from we had to pivot. Like last 20 years, I feel like I've been pivoting. The company has been pivoting constantly. If there's one thing
Mhm.
that's constant, that's the change. And to address change, you have to pivot. In the past, it was every few years. Now it's every 12 months, 16 months max. So in
Mhm.
that regard, it's the same. About 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, we realized that we are trying to catch up with this change all the time. And for a company, it's really difficult. And that's what most tech consulting firms do. Like they wait until the demand hits the market, then they go and look for to invest in infrastructure or in their employees and all that. And by the time they're ready to capture that demand, the demand is gone. In the
Mhm.
past, you could work with that model because the change was at least it would give you about 3 years on average. Now the change is 16 months. So if you spend all the time in hiring new people, investing in the new infrastructure to capture the demand is gone. So about 10 years ago, we created this thing called Emergence Convergence Framework, which is a tech forecasting model, emerging tech forecasting model. So what it does is it looks at several variables, and based on that, it tries to give us. In the past, it used to give us about six to 8 months of head start. Now it gives us about 3 months of head start on 3 to 5 months on what's coming down the pike, and that's very good for me because I can prepare. To answer your question, because it's shifting all the time, so how do we respond? This formula, this framework has been time tested. It gives us some idea of what's coming down the pike. For example, there was a very good example in my mind about the new cyber crimes that are coming, that are emerging.
It'll come to you.
Come to me later. So that's how we keep an eye on what's likely to happen. And then you see what companies are doing and what kind of tech they are adopting. And oh yeah, I remember. There is a challenge in LLMs. LLMs are very good. Let's use the example of writing a story. We are writing a story
Mhm.
where John is very happy. Write a story about it. LLM can write a story about it. John is very sad. It can write a story about it. John is very happy and very sad simultaneously because his daughter just graduated from high school is now is moving to college. Now you have dual emotions. John is happy because the daughter is graduated and moving to college, and sad because she's moving away. So now you have complex emotions. As you add more and more emotions, it can happen that you may be experiencing 5 different emotions simultaneously. LLMs
Mhm.
don't work very well with that. If you want to confuse an LLM, like the example earlier, the social engineering example that I shared, the story of the car and
Yeah.
all I had to do, which I did, to confuse that, like whenever it would ask me a question, I would give an answer with
Mhm.
multiple emotions involved in it. And it would respond
Okay.
by LOL. Didn't know
Too much.
didn't know how to respond to that. So what I did, so now LLMs are evolving to a level where they're going to be able to handle multiple emotions. I'm just using that as an example where it's going. So when I know the technology that's coming, and if it can handle multiple emotions, now I can in real time create characters, those chatbots, real time, that can really fool another person because they are so emotionally intelligent that no matter how you respond, they are able to interact with you. So that's a challenge. If I can't differentiate how if it's a machine or human or chatbot or who I'm talking to, even if it's a Zoom call, even if it's a phone call, doesn't matter. Phone calls are easier to actually do. There are already tools out there, salesperson AI chatbots where they make cold calls out there. You may have seen some of those, and they're pretty good. Not great. You can still catch them if you ask those tricky questions with multiple emotions. But very quickly, within this year, you'll see that AI will be able to handle multiple emotions and those complex, multidimensional characters and all that. So when that starts happening in real time and chatbots start acting in real time and start creating or evolving in real time, now we have real problem. So we need to think
Oh,
what to do about that. And there are a lot of smart people in cybersecurity space who are trying to find solutions.
got you on that. And I feel like you might have touched on it a little bit. You can correct me on this if I am wrong on here. As far as AI, blockchain technologies as they mature, how do you anticipate their integration into everyday consumer products and services beyond like specialized industries?
Oh no, it's currently happening,
Okay.
right? I won't name it, but the tool that you're using right now to record this conversation, it's AI powered. That under
Right.
have you seen under
Yeah,
dog in that tool? In this,
no, you're right.
if you use Netflix is using AI to process data to show you recommendations, for example. If you use any banking product, they use AI to prevent cyber crimes, financial crimes. There are actually tools out there that would predict probability of a financial crime, that a person is about to commit a crime based on their keystrokes and the pattern, their usage pattern, right? Amazon is using AI and big data to do the same thing. Look at your usage patterns and then determine when you're going to need a new tube of toothpaste, for example, right? So there's a reason why the moment you place the order, within hours sometime you get the product. It's not like you place the order and then they ship the order and then you get it's not like that. In some cases they're
Right.
shipping before even you place the order. Okay, so there's a lot of that big data processing going on. Blockchain and AI are a match made in heaven. You have to think of these technologies as pieces of one picture. So again, my theme in this conversation again and again is data. Remember, data is the lifeblood. So if you're looking for jobs,
Hmm.
data is the place to go. Data hygiene is a highly is rapidly evolving area of new jobs creation, for example. So first, you collect data. You can collect data through human entry. You can collect data through IoT devices, Internet of Things, sensors of different sorts. The data comes from somewhere. So you collect that data. The next thing is to clean the data. Then for that you have machine learning. And I know you mentioned earlier you wanted to know what machine learning is. Machine learning basically
Hmm.
is, in without getting too technical, look at this process or look at this thing and either find or do something similar and do that over and over until you become perfect. So the very
Okay.
first model that were trained for machine learning, they said go find cats in YouTube videos. And that's how ML models are really good at identifying cats, because they were trained on cat videos. The largest
Yeah.
number of videos on YouTube, they feature cats, no other animal object for whatever reason. So the researchers didn't go out to tell the ML model to find cats. They said just analyze YouTube videos and try to identify what's in there. And the ML models came
Mhm.
back and they said they're cats. Like, why cats? Turned out there are lots of cats on YouTube.
People love cats.
That's machine learning. That can be based on image processing. We did a project some years ago where you may have seen this feature in some cars where you wave your foot under the back of a car and the hood and the trunk opens, right? That feature. Volkswagen had that feature. So they said, we want to look at user uploaded videos on YouTube where they are using this feature. We want to do that. So what we did,
Oh,
we
okay.
processed. So we looked at those videos. We processed those videos using machine learning. We were able, and image processing. We were able to identify the videos, and then use them in ads, and then play those ads to on online, and then based on the location of the viewer, show them, give them the contact information of the local dealership in that person's area. So that's
Wow.
machine learning, right? Machine learning is great because, again, we can have a whole separate episode on machine learning, but it's great because you train AI through machine learning algorithms. And then there's
Right.
supervised machine learning and unsupervised and a bunch of other ways, but we won't go there.
We're not gonna go down the rabbit hole of
Uh,
machine learning on this particular episode, but
So
a lot of
I do
time.
want to make one point that data collection, we talked about that, human entry, sensors, all that. Then that data
Yep.
needs to be secured. How do we know that data that you collected, when it arrived to me, it was still the same data? Someone didn't mess with it on the way. Blockchain is beautiful for that purpose because it's chain of custody. We know every time data changes hands. Data can be cryptocurrency, data can be anything, any numbers.
Right.
So you use blockchain for chain of custody for secure storage of data. Now you have data, what you're going to do with that, right? That's when you bring in machine learning. You apply machine learning
Right.
algorithms and you find some actionable items out of it. I have this data, now I need. Then you use blockchain smart contracts type things and AI powered automation to do something based on those actionable items that we learned through machine learning algorithms on the data in the blockchain that was collected from different sources. So now you see it's a whole
Right.
big. If you look at just one piece of it, you'll be like, so blockchain, okay, secure database, big deal. Or IoT devices, data collection, big deal. Or AI. But when you combine all that, now you have superpower. Now you can do something with all this.
Yeah, and that's something I'm hoping that people that are watching and listening, you gotta paint the picture. It's not just something that's singular. Yeah, it's AI, but think of it as how are you going to use AI, and then you plug in. It's like almost like a little another piece. You're like building a puzzle in a sense.
Yeah.
And I feel if you're not getting educated on AI right now, I think that's something that a lot of people should go ahead and take a little bit of their time out of their day to go ahead and just start to get acclimated with this stuff. Because, like you said earlier, if you're in a certain industry where you're on that red flag, which you pretty much said 80% of
Mhm.
people that are in the industry, jobs are going to be gone, guys. Like you mentioned earlier, we're going to be living in the metaverse. That's something that I've already been seeing a lot of people in the crypto space talking about. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Roblox. I think that's that video game or something where I think they had the first. Oh man, what was it? I think they created the first metaverse job, so you can go in there and you can work. But I think they only had from one person. So it's happening,
Yeah.
and I feel like people are just ignoring it. And again, you're hearing it from a guy that is actually involved, talks to a lot of big time companies, Fortune 500 companies. He's name dropped a couple of people as far as different meetings. Guys, I'm telling y'all, artificial intelligence, if you're not getting involved, I seriously suggest you guys start to really take a look at it because as far as the possibilities with this thing, I feel like it's unlimited. And it's all based on basically what you want to do. Yes, there's exploitations out there. Hopefully, cybersecurity does get better. Hopefully, regulatory frameworks get better. Time that's going to hopefully happen, but at the same time, start somewhere. Like he said earlier, do not be stagnant.
Mhm.
We are actually running out of some time here. I do want to give you a last question, and obviously, you can have your final words and anything that you want to say to the audience. Last question here for you. This one's kind of a not too, I would say, too technical.
Mhm.
It's really just about AI, and do you see it coming into not just AI? I would say AI, blockchain. Do you start to see that start to coming into the school systems? Because
Mhm.
I feel like generations behind me, like the Gen Zers and everything like that, that's the future of next 20, 30 years. Or unless are you already seeing some implementations, or do you think that as we start to go along, as AI starts to get more involved,
Mhm.
are we going to start to see AI classes, this being implemented into the school systems?
Mhm. Yeah. A question that I often get, not so much recently actually, but a few months ago, I received this question very frequently from teachers. It was, how do I catch students using AI to do their homework? And I said, don't catch them using AI to do their homework. If you can catch them, it means they're not using AI correctly. Teach them how to use AI correctly. So that's one thing that, but in recent months, I haven't received this question. And the students would ask question, how do I use AI to write an essay that can't be caught using those AI detection tools? There's no perfect AI detection tool out there. You cannot actually use any of these tools in a court of law, for example. They're not 100% reliable. But this kind of mindset where I need to use AI behind my teacher's back and my teacher is trying to catch me using AI, that's not the right mindset. This is the future. This is the present, not even the future, it's the present. At the administration level, federal administration level, I am actually talking to a advisory group, think tank, that helps the government to come up with regulations around AI, specifically for the education space. So you will see more and more AI being integrated into schools and colleges and for education, which it's a new skill, it's a new language, it's a new tool. Why deprive
Right.
our students from that? But it doesn't mean that we can just start using apps to solve math questions. You can simply put your camera on a math question, it'll solve it. But it's like when I was in middle school, I wasn't allowed to use calculator. Primary school, middle school, no, not allowed to use calculator. High school, I was allowed to check my answers using calculator, but I still had to do the work. And I think we
Right.
still need to follow that kind of model where you need to know how to write an essay. Now, if you want to use a tool to, I use AI all the time for brainstorming, for example. I write quite a bit,
Right.
Forbes and other magazines, but I would sometimes go back and forth with an LLM. Let's debate, act like a consultant and debate with me. And that, or I want to write a speech, brainstorming, but it's for brainstorming. You still have to do your work. Otherwise, um, it can be problematic. So that's the teacher education question. And then you said last word suggestion for people how to, and this is where the conversation started when you and I started talking. People are freaking out. Individuals, if you're not in a business leadership or organizational leadership type role, you are an average individual, student or employee type person, know that AI is going to impact your life. Therefore, learn the tools. Now, if you try to learn AI, it's very difficult because it's constantly changing. So learn the tools that relate to you and your work. And the best way to do that, my advice, create a project, even if it's a fake project, even if it's made up project. Someone wanted to learn how to use AI effectively to write articles. I said, why don't you write a book using AI? Another person, he wanted to learn how to use AI to create art. I said, why don't you write a kid's storybook using AI? So just make up a
Right.
project, and there are online courses available on these online, like LinkedIn and other places like that. Some of them are paid, so it's a must-do thing. If you are a leader in an organization, in a business, then talk to somebody like myself or my colleagues in my organization or my industry colleagues who do this kind of work. This is all we do all day long. Talk to us, and we're happy
Right.
to present ideas and help chart the course and how to leverage these technologies. So that would be my present to your audience. Last word.
All right. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Y'all, that's gonna wrap it up for this particular episode here on the Wolf of Crypto podcast show. I want to thank Sani here again for joining the show and giving us a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, and just being a great guest on the show. I feel like we should bring him back, especially when it comes to machine learning. I think that's something that I definitely want to learn more about because, again, I am trying to use and trying to obviously implement that productivity onto my YouTube channel and also using it as far as to create a project. Like he said, you guys can utilize AI for a lot of different things. Again, the sky's the limit. There's no bar. It really just comes down to your imagination,
Mhm.
your creativeness. And if you need a little help with that, guess what? You have an assistant, AI, where you can, like he was saying, throw ideas, brainstorm. It's a tool that can be monetized if you know how to use it correctly. But I hope you guys did enjoy the show. And until the next time, again, I am your host, the Wolf of Crypto. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all take it easy. Have a good night. Peace.